It was time to begin the last stages of building our daggerboard cases from scratch, wrapping layers of both unidirectional and double bias fiberglass around the foam portions of the case, which we had just recently bonded with thickened resin. To best utilize our rolls of glass, as well as access the cases, we decided to split it into 3 sections, all of which I now had to cut the glass to size. After 8 years of the nomadic life, involving crossing oceans in a 34-foot Sabre, refitting an aluminum boat, and then taking that to the Arctic Circle, we're back at it again with a brand new build. This is Matt and I'm Jessica. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us every week as we start our newest project of building a 42-foot catamaran from the ground up. It's hard to believe, but there are only 2 more steps now until we can potentially get our dagger boards in place up on the boat. And this is where we're going to actually wrap the fiberglass around now that we have the case halves together and the foam on the outside. So we have to break it up a little bit because the way that it's sitting on the sawhorses right now, we can't fully wrap all around it. So today we're going to work on the midsection, let that cure, and then tomorrow I'll go back, put the sawhorses in the middle, and work on the top and bottom. Matt has already gone through this morning with 36 grit sandpaper on our orbital sander to go over every surface of these boards in preparation for the glass. And now he's getting styrene put on them, which just kind of helps clear out any remaining dust particles that we couldn't brush off, prep the surface, and then we're going to fill in any remaining little cracks with our thickened resin. Thankfully, since this edition of fiberglass required us to hand roll instead of vacuum bag, the amount of layers we were adding had been cut in half. First to go down were 2 layers of unidirectional, with the threads running horizontally across the case. Doing a pre-wet out on the table, we'd bring it over to the case and line it up with the bottom edge. Matt would continue to roll the top and the sides, while I would wet out the next section. Because we didn't want the seams to all overlap in the same spot, we also had to make sure to stagger them, so all the seams would come together at different places on the back of the case. After the 2 layers of unidirectional were 2 layers of our 12-ounce double bias. Once all of the pieces were on and fully wet out, we then went at it with a combination of a metal roller and our bubble roller, just to compress the fiberglass down as much as possible, as well as push out any air bubbles trapped between the layers of glass. With the front side done, the last step before flipping it over was to apply our peel ply, which will leave a smooth surface as well as soak up any extra resin. Clamping down our layers of glass, we rotated the case over to finish rolling the layers of glass onto the back. The next day, we moved on to the top portion of the case, which was sanded down once more, and Matt also blended the edges of the fiberglass we had previously applied, since there was going to be a 100mm overlap with the new glass we were applying. The process today was pretty much the same, although we did decide to work with the metal rollers more between applying layers. And we did change one more thing. Instead of pre-wetting our double fiberglass before bringing it over, this time we decided to do it on the case. Moving that glass when it was wet had been causing too much distortion, making it hard to get nice clean lines once it was on the case, especially the back side once we flipped it over. So far, everything was going much better. Once more, we applied the peel ply to the completed front side and went to flip the case over. Making those two changes made a huge impact, and although the portion we did the day before didn't look bad, this end was not only easier to work with, but much more professional looking. So I think it's safe to say that Matt and I's arms are both pretty exhausted right now. It was one thing on these when we were vacuum bagging to just roll out resin onto the 8 layers, but we didn't really have to worry about compressing it down or getting the air bubbles out because of course the compressor sucked all of that out for us. This time doing 4 layers, the 2 of unidirectional first and then the 2 of double bias. And then having to rotate the case and then like keep all of the air bubbles out. It's an exhausting project.
If you notice, I have a pinched nerve in my back for about a month now, and so this arm is pretty much dead. It's like a broken wing, and so it's made it really entertaining trying to do any of this type of stuff because I really don't have a bunch of function in this side of my body right now.
Yeah, so
good timing.
So I'm learning to become the muscle much more than I was before. So we do have the top and mid now, and then when the case kind of comes to its skinnier part at the bottom, that is what is left for us to do. We just finished up the vinyl ester resin that we have in here, so we're going to have to kind of scout through our storage and scrounge up some more, and as soon as we have that in hand, we can do this next case. But the weather has been perfect lately for this kind of stuff. Just cool enough for us like work, but the resin still kicks within a few hours, so yeah, we are almost getting to the stage where we're done and we can install. It's going to be so exciting. We'd like to thank ecoflow for sponsoring this portion of the video to help us build our dream and get back to traveling the world in an eco-friendly manner. The ecoflow Delta Max is a portable power station, which is the fastest charging power station on the market. When charged by an AC outlet, can go from 0 to 80% in just 65 minutes, or connect with up to 2 400-watt solar panels for 800 watts of off-grid charging, which makes it perfect for those living a life aboard, or even those who are pretending because they just can't wait to get back on the water. So while I'm living this fantasy of what our life used to be, I can spend my mornings in my new boat enjoying coffee, getting ready for an evening with friends, or forget about work for a night as we kick back and watch a movie on our TV. Whether you're looking to use this as a backup for your home, for off-grid life, or your professional life, ecoflow has you covered. Starting with 2016 watt-hours, you can expand the capacity by linking up to 2 extra batteries for a full 6,048 watt-hours, powering 99% of the devices in your home. With the ecoflow app, you can monitor charge levels, usage data, and more, all on your phone. To learn more about it, make sure to click on the link in our description box below. I think we've spent enough time working in the head and the forward bunk that it's now time to focus attention a little bit more on our queen berths and the aft cabins. So, as you can tell, Matt has made some changes, getting the structural shelves in, but right now we're going to reinforce bulkhead 6 because when we did cut out the opening that's going to allow us access into our bed, we did take away a little bit of the strength, so we're going to put unidirectional fiberglass in these troughs that Matt has kind of like decored some of the foam, and that unidirectional is just going to go in a circular, just giving it a lot of extra strength. And this is a project that drove us crazy right when we started the build, when we were first putting the big bulkheads in or getting them cut, numbers 4 and 5 at the top of them, we had to do the same thing. So of course, spanning the whole width of the boat, we had trouble kind of like rolling up that fiberglass and getting it in place. Since then, we have become a little bit better, so we'll take you through the process of how we're doing it now. So the first thing we're doing is taking our Total Boat structural putty, which is just a thickened polyester resin, and Matt is kind of coating the trough with it to give the unidirectional place to stick, give it a little extra strength there.
This is the key. This is what we were missing previously. we were just we were wetting out the inside with this resin and then applying the unidirectional in there. It did not work out well.
It did not stick.
Down, it did not stick. So this is really the glue that's kind of holding it up into place, defying gravity then and keeping it up where we actually want it. We are still using plastic U-channels to hold up this area, the vertical and the horizontal, the raised area. But this is the key. Something that we'd apply this after the fact. After we put that in there, we'd do that to fill in the weave and stuff, but really the key is beforehand.
So now that we have the unidirectional in place and Matt has gone through and added some extra thickened resin around it, kind of smooth it up as best as possible, we're putting the plastic kind of like U-channels that have been covered in packing tape to make them even easier to remove.
Yep, and then just cut it so now it's flexible within that part.
And so now I can go around corners.
This works well for these large radius.
I feel like there were like little scraps of this stuff somewhere there that you can make up those like 3 inches.
And much more important on the corners, and we got that covered. So on this side it actually fits tight because this is 1 1/4 inch piece which goes over our bulkhead fine. Over here we can't use the 1 1/4 because we had the extra glass here. The next step up, they didn't have like 1 3/8. They had 1 1/2 inch, which doesn't quite fit on here. So clamps kind of hold it into place for us.
Never have enough clamps.
Never have enough clamps. Yeah. We'll pull this good. Trying to get it at least as clean as possible, so it's a little bit easier of a job for Jess later on.
Yay. Just the Gerber hole anyway. Right now we are in what we like to call the false spring stage here in Maryland, which means temperatures will kind of jump up to like 65 degrees, stay there for 2 days, and then drop down to like 34 degrees and stay there for a few days. So we never really know what we're going to get. Makes it a little bit harder to do some of our projects based on heating because our resin needs to be a minimum of 60 degrees to cure, preferably 65 to 70. But today is one of those days we have like heavy south winds blowing some warm air up. We're going to get to 65 today. So Matt and I are tackling a number of projects that we want to do glassing but are not within enclosed areas that we can, like put that bubble tape and put a heater in, and have to hope that we can get it done quick and those warmer temperatures get that to cure. So right now Matt is going through, and the transom section that he cut out, he's tucked himself inside after having prepped a few days ago when it was really cold, and now he is glassing our bulkheads 8 and 9 to the transom, which we had slid on back in the fall. And now another area that we want to conquer, bulkhead 6 here into our bunk. Matt has gone through and added bearing compound and then did a routing to the edges to get exactly the right radius that we want. And now we're going to reinforce it one last time by wrapping some fiberglass around here. So I'm going to get that area prepped with some styrene, and then once Matt is done with the transom section, we're going to attack base. just before glassing around the bulkhead, we did a skim coat of thickened resin. This was just to fill in any minor holes or gaps so that when the glass did go on, it had as smooth of a surface as possible to lay on, which also means a smoother surface once I go to fair. Using 5-inch wide sections of our 12-ounce double bias fiberglass, the plan was to use only one sheet instead of layering and to have it evenly wrap around the opening. The corners were going to be our trickiest part, and we cut notches in the fiberglass to help it bend around the curve. Everything went on as smoothly as we could expect, and now this area is fully ready for me to fair. Yay! We ended up breaking the glassing of our daggerboard cases into 3 days, just because the amount of time and energy required to properly roll on all the layers. And although the bottom section may seem the easiest because it's the smallest, this is actually the most important section of the case and requires the most attention. Not only was there an extra layer of both unidirectional and double bias needed, but we also wanted to do strips where the two sections of glass come together, reinforcing the areas even more. We could immediately tell the difference in the extra glass, needing to roll air out of 6 layers now instead of 4. There was a lot of sweat and damn near a few tears for me when I couldn't get the corners to properly round. But after a bit of extra attention, it was time for peel ply, a signal we were finally done with that section. All the effort was well worth it though, as the last piece of peel ply went on, and we could call this project a success.
Did it!
It's completed our first daggerboard case. Well, the other one's done too. It's back there, but we did it. So
This has been ridiculous how long it's actually taken for us to complete this process. It's now done, and you will never have to see us building daggerboard cases again. We promise.
So now that we have finished, the big question is, was it worth it to build these ourselves? Because I think we've mentioned a few times before that Max Cruise does offer these daggerboard cases, but we made the decision that we wanted to build them ourselves, and that was summer of 2020 when this was all a thought.
Before we had actually started fiberglassing anything together or even doing any of that process.
And the reason that we wanted to do this so badly is because we knew that we were getting these molded pieces from Max Cruise. And so we kind of, as most people liken it to an IKEA piece of furniture, like kind of just assembling pieces that were already there. And we desperately wanted to make a core piece ourselves. And so that is why we decided to take this project on, so we would know what it would be like to build something entirely from scratch, something so structural and important. Actual work time invested in these was maybe like a week and a half or 2 weeks.
I would guess probably, if you added all the hours together, it's probably a good 40 hours, so 80 hours with the two of us working together.
Which is kind of what I expected when we first made this decision, that it might take us an extra 2 weeks of work to build these cases. But I Yeah.
I love it. I love the process. You know, it was, yeah, we've said it 100 times. The whole reason we wanted to build a boat is to learn all of these little details and get the satisfaction of actually building something ourselves. And this was one of the key components and one of the things that we will look at every single time we walk into either of the hulls or we're using the daggerboards and be appreciative of the fact that we did it.
So the cases themselves are finished, and then over the next few weeks we'll be getting them in place, so stay tuned for that because it brings on lots of other exciting things like being able to put the soles down and doing our fuel tanks.
The first domino in a series of things, basically everything between where the bulkhead where the mast goes and the bulkhead where the salon where the sleeping berths are, in between on both sides we were held up by getting these completed.
So one major step done, and it feels great. So stay tuned for lots of exciting things coming very soon.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of things just bam, 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 hopefully.
Give me your freedom. Whoa, yeah, to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Want your pandemonium. Life is so easy. Whoa, you love me to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Want your pandemonium.